7:30 on this Friday morning on OTB AM. Delighted to have you with us. Thanks for joining us as per always. OTB AM brought to you with Gillette in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent Mo. You can sign up or donate now at Movember.com. We're live in the usual places, the OTB Sports app and across the streams as well. So keep the comments coming in this morning. Delighted to have Gavin Cooney of the 42.ie in studio this morning. Good morning, Gavin.
Morning, Shane. How are you?
You were in the cold confines of the Aviva Stadium press box last night for Republic of Ireland 1, Norway 2. Disappointing night, I think, is the best word to use.
Yeah, pretty drab stuff. This is really off Broadway stuff, isn't it? I mean, a friendly against Norway, two sides not going to the World Cup, playing days before the World Cup in an unsanctioned window. I thought international football might be a little bit more exciting, given this was unsanctioned and this was. Is it technically illegal international football? But no, it wasn't. And what energy or what atmosphere might have been in the stadium was obviously sapped from it beforehand with the news that Erling Haaland wouldn't be there. So, no, it was a pretty drab night. First half was the kind of game that they'll show to broadcasters.
It was brutal.
But when the next broadcast rights auction for the UEFA Nations League is up, they'll sit down and make the broadcasters watch this game, and you'll realise what an advert for the UEFA Nations League. You forget how few meaningless friendlies we have to play now every year, but this was meaningless in a kind of a Beckett level. You know, it was just such such a kind of a drab experience. First half was a total non-event really. Ireland hogged the ball. They didn't really do much with it. There was no real. Alan Brown said afterwards that there was no real zip or pace in their passing or anything that they did. Now Norway didn't do a whole lot either, but Ireland didn't defend set piece as well. So 1-0 at half time, and then Ireland raised themselves in the second half, and then as soon as they got level, they just sank back into their torpor again and contrived to lose it. I mean, Norway almost won it accidentally. Like they didn't put they
weren't trying to win it essentially.
They really weren't, and then the Odegaard just hoisted this free kick into the box that unfortunately Nathan Collins couldn't defend very well, and it was a good finish by the striker first time.
Atmosphere wise, like I was watching through the TV and it seemed fairly subdued. Now of course the fans are reacting to what's before them on the pitch, but it seemed fairly drab in many ways, the atmosphere as well. Yeah,
it was pretty low energy. There were times in the first half I felt that the crowd, and in the second half as well, that the crowd wanted to get into this and wanted to get carried away, and there was quite a good reception and quite a loud reception among supporters for just winning corners and things like that, things that normally wouldn't earn that much kudos. But there was just so little happening on the pitch for so long that it was very hard for engage. So it was like 10,000 discreet conversations all happening around the stadium, just this like low hum of conversation, because there wasn't enough on the pitch. And that's, I don't know, Ireland under Stephen Kenny, I wrote in my report, they're forever a side matching like the exact pitch of the occasion.
Yeah.
So that's great on a night when the atmosphere is charged and the opposition are high caliber, but it's not a good trait to have on games like these. Like they're a lot. They seem at the moment a lot more comfortable feeding off the crowd than doing the feeding themselves.
A couple of comments already coming in. Didn't even watch, lads. No interest. Fair enough. Each to their own. Steve says lame and tame from Ireland. Too soft and brittle. The defeat was how we lost to Wales, Finland, Armenia. In all games we lose. We have 25 minutes where we are good, but 65 where we are awful.
It's a good point. I mean, I was trying to think about it afterwards. Have there been like a complete 90-minute performance under Stephen Kenny yet? And I'm struggling really, because even the Scotland game, the 3-0 win at home where Ireland scored some brilliant goals and were very comfortable in the second half, that might have been different. You know, Scotland missed those couple of chances early on in the first half when Ireland, I think it was Shane Duffy a couple of times, gave the ball away trying to play out from the back. So and that's even the Armenia game in September. We thought Ireland were kind of cruising to a comfortable victory there, and then all of a sudden it's 2-2 out of nowhere, and obviously they rescue it. So no, I think that's a good point. I am struggling to think of a 90-minute performance that they've put together where you can say that's them at their best.
Like the set pieces, the concession from set pieces is reasonably concerning. Like I know Stephen Kenny speaking afterwards saying. He denied the suggestion that Anthony Barry and John Eustace had this massive influence over set pieces and they were missing it. He said absolutely not. I've always been in complete control around set pieces, but like They were poor last night.
Yeah.
I know individual. You could say there's individual errors in there as well, which the manager can't really control. But overall, to be conceding goals like that was fairly sloppy.
Yeah, Ireland aren't good enough to be giving away goals from set pieces.
No.
Like, it's too easy. And Stephen Kenny was quite critical of the fact that they did. He describes them as cheap, and his that second goal is cheap. In his RTE interview, said that Ireland shot themselves in the foot and undid all the good work that they had in getting back into the game. So no, I mean, Nathan Collins should defend that second goal better. I think he knows that. First goal seemed more of a systems failure. Jason Malumbi is in his zone at the front post, and then I can't remember who the Norwegian player runs towards him.
Yeah.
And he's been marked by Alan Brown, and Brown follows him, and he shouldn't. He should stay where he is, and then that leaves the space for Ostergaard, the centre half, who looped around, and that's the space from which he headed home. So that was more of a systems failure. Just on that John Eustace thing. So that was my question. Now I haven't thought about it again. I kind of made a bit of a hames of the question. What I was trying to get to was, the staff is undermanned. Ireland still haven't got a replacement for John Eustace.
Yeah, fair point.
And I just wonder, surely that this isn't ideal. I mean, it's not a criticism of those there. It's just that they have only so many hours in the day, and other national staffs of these large backroom teams with specific set piece coaches. Like, we've heard so much about the Italian set piece coach in during the Euros, who I think is now Tottenham, I think.
Yeah.
So I just wondered that is this growing laxness from set pieces, because it's not the first time Ireland have conceded from them. Is this a result of just not having being a man down on the coaching staff? And Kenny insisted no. I think he interpreted my question as, is this because you don't have Eustace or Anthony Barry
he took
on
it
the
quite
staff?
literally.
Yeah, he did. And in fairness, that's partly a consequence of how I phrased the question, which had I my time again, I wouldn't have phrased it that way.
Don't be so hard on yourself, Gavin.
Yeah.
It was great. Yeah, and I guess when you're losing staff members like that, really good staff members, you got to replace them. We got to replace them with someone. And even from an attacking point of view, like that final third, especially in the first half, was just woeful. I feel like the Obafemi Robinson thing just never got going.
No, it didn't. Kenny did talk about it afterwards, that in fairness that they hadn't played together before, and he saw a bit more from them in the second half.
Yeah.
Certainly from Robinson, improved a lot after half time, but they just never connected well. There was a moment in the second half when Robinson got to the byline and just cut the ball back and was just behind Obafemi, had he played another half a yard in front of him, would have been a goal. So they never really connected very well. The first half was just so slow and pedestrian, and it's another. I think Kenny was quite forceful on RT in rejecting the idea that Ireland were too passive in the first half, or were a bit flat. But they were. I mean, some of the passing early on in terms of breaking lines and trying to play through Norway was okay. Like that first pass they'd get off, like Darrow Shea into feet for Alan Brown, but then the next pass was often a little bit too slow. I think it was a game to show that Ireland still lack craft and guile in midfield. Now, you're wondering what players could they bring in. I would have loved to have seen Will Smallbone brought in.
Yeah,
he
earlier.
wasn't introduced at all.
Sorry, Evan Ferguson could have been brought in earlier even.
Maybe, yeah. I just thought that was the kind of game that, Smallbone, that type of player, is a player Ireland need to add to that team. So I'm slightly disappointed that we didn't see him earlier. Like other players that could do that role, maybe Jack Byrne or Conor Ronan, are either not playing at club level or just have struggled with injury all season and are not at the level that they can reach, certainly in Jack Byrne's case. So in the second half, Ireland's strength is down the flank, certainly with Matt Doherty and with Callum O'Dowd picked at left wing back, who is playing there with his club but has been an attacker for years. Kenny said that Ireland tried to go through the middle of Norway too often in the first half, had more success in going wide in the second, and look, they created a flurry of chances before they did equalise. It was a great goal by Alan Brown. He might have scored beforehand, someone should have scored beforehand, but again, it's just that laxness. Ireland just, I don't know, they struggle sometimes to maintain a kind of an intent in their passing throughout a full game. Like it happened against Armenia as well. And then we've seen slow starts after half time away to Scotland, in Poland against Ukraine. So, if you look at the evolution of this team, 2020 was when the team was deluged with debutants. 2021 was when they found the right system for them. 2022 has been like a year of kind of run the diagnostics and see what flows are coming up.
We thought this would be the year where those players making their debuts will be like, oh, they're coming into their own. It's 2 years down the line, but it hasn't really materialised.
Yeah, well, yeah, probably not to the extent that we would have hoped for.
Yeah.
But it was all building up to your 2024 qualifying. that entire long-term plan has been mocked slightly by the draw that Ireland have got. And look, I mean, the hope was that Norway game would be a bit of a tune-up for March. It's not. I don't know if, of the 3 players who came in, maybe Alan Brown made the case for his inclusion. I'm not sure Robinson or O'Dowd really did. And the opposition can't be, I mean, there'll be a cracking atmosphere in March. So
no Erling Haaland. I was asking Phil outside this morning, what would the score have been if Haaland had been on the pitch? Now, he made the point the crowd would have, and players therefore, risen to the atmosphere if Haaland was on the pitch. So it's hard to.
I actually kind of agree with Phil on that. I have to say, it just goes back to this thing that Ireland. Sometimes I feel it's not a technical issue with Ireland. Sometimes it is just an issue of intent and intensity, really. It's pretty in the first half. And I think Haaland being there would have sharpened everyone's senses, because he has to. He would have sharpened the crowd, and it would have been louder throughout. There would have been more a kind of a palpable electricity before the game, I think. And you don't know. And then, like, Norway didn't really create many chances beyond the ones that they scored, really. So there weren't that many chances where you could point to and say, the lad up front, Jørgen Larsson, missed that and Haaland would have scored. There was the one shot after Bazunu gave the ball away. So no, there wasn't a whole lot else.
I was reading, of course, at half time and full time I was listening to the analysis and off the ball, but Didi Hamann was on television giving sticking the boot in, I have to say, to Ireland. I'm just reading some of the comments here. He said the first half is as poor as I've seen. The manager hasn't won one game in 2 years that he needed to win. It was an opportunity for some of the players to remind the manager when the France game comes around that I'm here too. But we talked about inconsistency. Ireland were huffing and puffing. Over 90 minutes, just not good enough. He said we had a discussion 2 years ago about transition, that we build and bring players in. These players have all been around for years. If it's not working the way you're doing it, you've got to change something. I'm the last person for a manager to call out players, but you've got to do something about it, because the first half is as poor as I've seen. The first half was pathetic. Like, does he have a point? Does Stephen Kenny need to call out the players to any extent here, or is that just not? It's not in his repertoire. He doesn't do that generally.
No, and I don't think any manager really should. I mean, what little I know about football, I learned from watching John Giles and RTE growing up. And one of Giles' many golden rules was, as soon as you see a manager criticise the players in public, it's done. And in fairness, like, Jose Mourinho is
king of it.
is the most obvious example of that. No, the idea that the solution to Ireland's issues in that game was for Kenny to come out and lambast his players in the press is absolutely rubbish, to be quite honest with you. He was tempered in his criticism, but the criticism was there, and it was slightly firmer than it had been before. Basically, Ireland did not defend the goals well, and it gave away cheap goals, and using the phrases like shot themselves in the foot. I think that's fine. I thought he spoke pretty well after the game. He struck that balance better in terms of his analysis, and his summation of the game was I thought he struck a tone, a better tone then than he had previously, certainly after the Armenia game in September.
A few more comments coming in across the YouTube. Plenty of people have opinions on this morning, no doubt. Norway have better players, says Danny. We have no quality. That's why Kenny got the job. It's not attractive anymore. Matthew O'Connor says, per performance, has you worried about France coming to town? Mark says that's the per display is down to the players, not Kenny. Steve says we are basically where the Irish rugby team were in the 90s, wooden spoon whipping boys. David says, I go to the home games, we need 2 players in central midfield who can take the ball and pass it up the pitch. Without that, Kenny system does not work. Worried about times ahead, clock ticking. And then more people talking about these fixtures, the World Cup fixtures coming up. Someone really sticking the boot in, saying whatever about France and the Netherlands, Greece are going to beat us 1-0 and we are going to draw with Gibraltar.
I don't think we'll, I know it might be a hostage to fortune here. I don't think we'll draw against Gibraltar. The Greece game is a bit of a nightmare. The Greece game is a bit of a nightmare in the sense that they were the trickiest side Ireland could have got out of pot 4 as well. Like, they're the real sleeper in this group of death, and that in many ways is the most important game, because Ireland's performance in the group stages won't have a bearing on whether they get a Nations League playoff or not. It's everyone else's performance.
Yes,
but they have to be at the stage where they have to be at the stage under the manager now where they're able to go and beat the sides that they're ranked above.
100%.
And this is where the draw and even the fixture list is a nightmare for Ireland, because they have to go away to Greece in June in the heat of Athens, which is going to be very difficult, and it's midway into June, so it'll be weeks after the championship season ends. We saw how rusty the players were away to Armenia last year, so that's a difficult one. I mean, in many ways, that Greece game is kind of almost the most important game in the group in a way, because it's so unlikely that Ireland would split Ireland could acquit themselves very well in the group and just not split the top 2, just because of the level of individual quality on their sides. But in terms of looking forward to any potential playoff, it's the Greece game it's probably the best measure of how the side is improved.
I was listening to Alan Brown after the match, and he keeps talking about how Norway were just very compact, tough to break down. It strikes me like when a player's saying that, what you need in that situation is maybe substitutions, early substitutions, half-time substitutions. Like, the argument has been made that Kenny maybe doesn't make the substitutions early enough. What was it, 75 minutes before anyone came off the bench last night? This is a friendly, let's not forget. Malta to come on Sunday. There's plenty of opportunity here for people to get your opportunity. As you say, Will Smallbone was sitting there, ready to go. Ferguson, and even you're taking on players like maybe Hendrick and Brady who you know what they can do.
Yeah.
So maybe take on the lads you don't know much about earlier. Still bring on your Brady and Hendrick to get their caps in, but it just struck me as, substitution-wise, too late almost.
Yeah, it was very late. I mean, the team now is very much in its evolution phase rather than revolution. The revolution has happened in terms of numbers of players blooded, etc. He picked a pretty settled team. You could argue pretty much 8 of that team that started are first choice now. The 3 people who came in were O'Dowd at left wing back, Robinson up front, and Brown in midfield.
Yeah.
They were the understudies ready to see what they had in the limelight kind of thing. As I mentioned, maybe Brown was the best of the 3. And then there was very little experimentation beyond that. Obviously Ferguson came on for his debut on the 88th minute mark. I'm not sure he touched the ball. Hopefully we'll be looking back at this game in years to come as Evan Ferguson's debut, because
exactly.
It won't be remembered otherwise. Again, I would have liked to have seen Smallbone just to see what he could add. Like, I know there's an element of he wants, this is the team, and we want the team to further cohere, and that the more minutes they get together, the better. But at some point of the second half, even in the first half, you're thinking Ireland are lacking so much in midfield here. Let's just see what Smallbone brings. Let's just give
it a go.
Give an answer to the question. I think I would have liked to have seen that, and I would have liked to have seen it earlier. But evidently, we're at the stage now where Kenny is like, this is the group I have. This is what we're going to run with for your 2024 qualifying.
Keep the comments coming in on the Republic of Ireland. Your thoughts on last night. Were you at the match? Were you watching? Your thoughts on Stephen Kenny, the team itself last night, the performance. So we'll return to that across the show, of course, and we'll have plenty of reaction from the players, including the goal scorer Alan Brown. All were speaking to Nathan last night. Here's what's coming up between now and 10 o'clock. So 8 o'clock we've got Ronan O'Gara joining the show, so loads to delve into with him, including the Babas, himself and Scott Robertson, of course, taking charge of that Babas win last weekend over New Zealand 15. Quinny then from 8:20 will of course be looking ahead to the Australia test tomorrow evening at the Viva Stadium, 8 p.m. Sports pages from 8:45, all the headlines from this morning. 8:55, Ryan McHugh will join us to reflect on the incredible Donegal career of his former teammate Michael Murphy, who of course has hung up his boots. Kevin Gaban has joined myself and Adrian. We've had a chat with him yesterday, so we'll play that out for you. And he's talking about Canada's chances at the World Cup. Of course, Kev working over there at the moment, and we'll talk about Ronaldo's interview, the 2-part interview with Piers Morgan, and plenty more reaction to the Republic of Ireland loss to Norway last night from 9:30 as well this morning. Just want to touch on a couple of the back page headlines in the papers this morning. FA calls out FIFA over migrants. This is the sporting headline on the Telegraph. Failure to improve workers' rights in Qatar has challenged England invite group to their World Cup training complex. So this was an unsanctioned thing that the English team did with a group of migrant workers. Had a training session with them, which was a lovely thing to see. And Erasmus's referee jibes land Twickenham ban. So Rassie Erasmus, South Africa's director of rugby, banned from all involvement in his side's game against England at Twickenham next weekend. Suspended by World Rugby for 2 matches following his Twitter posts and rants after all of these games. The Daily Express across the water too has feel good factor. Foden has a real belief 3 Lions can lift the trophy. The English hype train has started in earnest ahead of the World Cup. Iran star hits out at campaign. Iran captain has hinted at a campaign to destabilise his side ahead of their World Cup opener against England. He suggested there's attempts to undermine the squad's mentality after he was asked how the anti-government protests back home had affected the players in the build-up. Max Verstappen, F1 abuse, disgusting. He's told the world of Formula 1 not to go after his family. He's described social media abuse following last weekend's Brazilian Grand Prix as unacceptable and disgusting. So of course he was criticised after his refusal to allow his teammate Sergio Perez to overtake him at the season-ending the second last race, the Brazilian Grand Prix last weekend. Evan sent, that is in fact not a headline from today, I'd imagine. That is yesterday's paper, so we'll ignore that one, although it still stands to reason. Evan Ferguson on the back page, and hopefully he can score against Malta on Sunday and break that record to become Ireland's youngest ever scorer. The back page of the Herald, Norway strike late to scupper Ireland. Brown effort not enough to rescue Kenny's men. It was a good strike from Alan Brown, at least.
It was great. It was just such a satisfying cut across the ball.
Yeah.
And the ball set up nicely for him. The shouts of shoot were, I think the ball had just been cleared. It was maybe still connecting with a Norwegian head.
The fans just wanted something.
Just like, give us something.
Yeah. So it was a lovely goal. At least that was something to cheer about last night. Farrell urged players to keep their heads for Aussie clash. That's, of course, Andy Farrell talking ahead of that match. We'll do the back page of the Mirror. Al in vain. Republic of Ireland 1, Norway 2. Brown's brilliant bullet. Mere consolation as Norway expose set-piece frailty. Wales sweating on the fitness of Joe Allen. Time running out for him to make Wales' World Cup opener. And terrible news for Senegal's Sadio Mane. He has been ruled out of the World Cup. So injured playing for Bayern Munich earlier this month, and he has failed to recover on time. Senegal's record goal scorer, X-ray on his injured knee yesterday. That's a bit of a blow for Senegal.
Puts the sad in Sadio, really, doesn't it?
Oh, very good, Gavin.
No, it's very upsetting for Senegal and Mane. But good news for Qatar.
Well, yeah, you were saying this. So that group is. Tell us about that
Netherlands,
group.
Senegal, Qatar, and Ecuador.
So you expect the Dutch to top that group.
Yeah, and then if Senegal are very good, like if they had Mane, I thought that maybe they could match what they did in 2002 and go to the quarterfinals.
Yeah. Progress a little bit.
Now I'm not so sure. I think Qatar will have benefited from effectively being a club side. Like, I mean, the Qatari league's shut down in September. They've been training away together, and they'll have a level of kind of cohesion that no other side will have. You know, I mean, this has been cobbled together, within 7 days of the European season going on pause. So, I don't know. I think Qatar. I know we saw them in a friendly against Ireland 2021 where they were
that day.
Truly useless, and they also, that poor form continued on into this year. They, as part of their preparations during the summer, they lost a closed doors friendly to Linfield. Lost 1-0. But
come back from that.
Will they become the first side to lose to Linfield and then go to the World Cup last 16? Possibly.
They'd take that certainly as hosts to get progressed beyond the group stage, because that is a relatively tough group. But with Mane being out, that the back page of the Sun covers that story as well. Sad Mane, suffers KO. Bale still perfect. Gareth Bale getting into the swing of things. We'll come back to this as well. Ron's 10-day. Cristiano Ronaldo blasting Erik ten Hag's excuses after unleashing another scathing attack on the Manchester United boss. So part 2 of that interview was aired last night, so we'll come back to that later on. Vikings smashed her, Kenny fighting his corner after loss, and I guess the back page of the Guardian as well. I mean, Gav, you're heading to Qatar. We're going to touch on this now. You're flying out tomorrow, but Beckham beams in with a message of tolerance. Qatar ambassador's vision for hosts. England field training burn as they ponder taking a knee. England dealing with the heat. I think they're taking beetroot juice and turmeric and stuff to kind of cope with the heat. Colin Buhig, our producer, pointed this photo out this morning. Phil Foden, what looks very, I guess, communist, Soviet Union-esque Russia vibes with the granny's curtains furniture.
Is that a tear in the curtain?
It is a tear in the curtain also in the back. What appears to be a tear in the curtain. So you've got the wall and the curtains and the carpet and the couches. And
that must be the England hotel.
Of course.
The tear in that curtain, that's a real bang of intro to athletic long read on England's disastrous World Cup in Qatar.
What does the tear mean? Yeah. So Gav, you're flying out to Qatar tomorrow. How are you feeling ahead of the trip? Are you nervous?
Well, look, I'm looking at videos of security guards forcefully pushing away journalists and threatening to smash cameras. So, yeah, really looking forward to it.
It's concerning for journalists as well.
I have to say, I am excited about it. I have to say, I know it's certainly the most controversial World Cup since 1978, and rightly so. It's almost like a moral quandary for everyone who's either going or sitting down to watch, who isn't a blazer at FIFA, it would seem. I mean, they're the only ones who weren't assailed by their conscience over this. And David Beckham as well has obviously won the war with his own conscience over all of this as well. But no, I'm really looking forward to it. There's a professional level of excitement there. It's the biggest story in the world, and to be at it is a pretty amazing opportunity.
There's the story as well that's kind of come out in the papers this morning as well, but Qatar wanting to ban Budweiser being sold in stadiums. So all along we've been told that Budweiser is the beer that's being sold in grounds or whatever else. And just 2 days out from kickoff, so today 48 hours of course from the Qatar-Ecuador game on Sunday. So in talks with FIFA, who are shocked by the late nature of this call apparently, FIFA already conceded to Qatar 2022 and making Budweiser stands less prominent in the stadiums. This came at the insistence of the Thani royal family in Qatar. Alcohol, of course, will be sold at the Doha fan parks, but there's talk that this is going to happen. Alcohol will be banned from stadiums, which is a mad late call. I mean,
Yeah.
48 hours out from the first game. It's like the Qataris have just seen all the fans starting to arrive and they're like, no, let's pull the plug.
Yeah, not to the place is ruled by royal decrees, so I mean generally what they want they'll get, so I'd expect this to happen if it's being reported and if it's being weighed up. But it's also consistent with some of the slightly chaotic preparation and the moving things on a whim. We know that, for example, for a tournament that was awarded 12 years ago, the start date was brought forward by a day, which is with just over 100 days out. That was again, so that meant FIFA had a load of sponsors activation launched around the world around 100 days to the World Cup. That was instantly out of date. There was an extraordinary story reported by Tariq Panja of the New York Times back then that the Emir of Qatar was on his way to an official stadium opening and decided to rename the stadium and the car on the way to it. I can't remember. It might be the Al Janoub Stadium.
You couldn't write it.
Yeah, no, and so people arrived, and all the signage and all the branding and everything is done for the stadium, and it's just like, oh, by the way, we've renamed it on the way here. So yeah, that's just another little insight into the country in which they're dealing with. But some might say that FIFA might have had an idea that this was possible before they awarded it to Qatar, unless, of course, maybe they didn't do their full due diligence, which is,
I mean,
a possibility.
Who could possibly accuse FIFA of not doing due diligence? I mean, it's a bit. You're staying in Doha, is it? So, what's the setup for journalists?
Yeah.
Is it just a case of all journalists are penned in one area together, or is it kind of fairly fluid?
I'm in a hotel, with the Irish Times, by pure chance in Doha, and then it's it's like, I suppose it's more like an Olympics in the sense that, look, I've never been to a World Cup before, but it's all in one place. Usually, last year have been Russia and then in Brazil. So these huge continental-sized countries, I'd imagine you spend most of the World Cup flying from one city to another. That obviously won't happen this time. You'll hop on a metro
next
line.
time as well, sure. USA, Canada, Mexico. That's going to be a lot of flying.
Completely. The metro line covers most things. So it seems like there's this giant media centre that is an old converted airport from which is like everyone's central node, and then they'll hop on shuttle buses out to the various stadia. In terms of going off the beaten track for stories, I'm not sure many people will be able to do that, because I'm not sure if there's a non-beaten track. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's like staying between the rope.
It's just the place is so small, and it's there's so many stadiums, and it's all kind of on that kind of quite defined circuit. So we'll have to see how it goes. So no, I am super excited about it.
I guess those stories will be around the teams. Like some teams, no doubt, will take political stances during matches or before games or whatever, and we don't know what some of these things will look like. Could be as simple as wearing the rainbow laces or taking the knee, as we're saying England could be planning to do. So there's going to be little things, but you'd imagine a couple of teams will have some serious stances and have maybe discussed in their leadership groups to do something. So maybe that the stories will be at the games.
Yeah, I mean, quite possibly. I'm not sure I'm not sure what is planned. Obviously there's the rainbow armband, but that's quite a subtle protest, really. Yeah. I'm not sure that'll send too many ripples around the world. Obviously Australian players spoke out ahead of the tournament. I got the sense maybe that they spoke out because, in the sense that that's their stance. It was very admirable and very powerful, and they should be praise for it and nothing else. But you get the sense that maybe that was them addressing the situation ahead of the tournament. Will they continue to do so during it? Maybe they will. I don't know. But FIFA will ban what they see as political slogans.
Yeah.
So the Danish team tried to wear t-shirts bearing the phrase "human rights" at training.
What a terrible thing to do.
And FIFA rejected it as political.
How dare they wear t-shirts saying human rights?
And but for FIFA to interpret that as a political slogan is kind of, it boils down the outlook, which has resulted in sending the World Cup to Qatar.
Was Grant Wall, the US journalist, I think, tweeting the other day talking about even he was trying to take photos of a slogan or something in a public area and
in a media centre.
In a media centre,
yeah. And there was a giant bland slogan on the wall of a media centre, and according to this story, he took a picture of it, and a security guard sidled over to say, "No pictures, and can you delete that, please, sir?" It's just like, that's on the wall of the media centre, like that's where at the accreditation collection point. So literally every journalist, every international media figure going to the World Cup will pass through this room. So
they're just not used to this freedom of expression, probably possibly the
security
over there.
I think that's going to be the issue, and that's at the root of a lot of the uneasiness among people wondering whether to go or not. The gap between what's said by those organising the tournament and what's put out in FIFA press releases and what might actually be enforced on the ground. How do you change the years, if not decades long practices and principles and outlooks of those on the ground for the sake of, for just, at the flick of a switch, as if to say, hands out, like this is going to be light touch for a month.
You know what games you're covering?
So I've got a list. Only some have been approved at the moment. I'm definitely doing England's 3 group games, and I'm definitely doing France-Denmark. I can only assume that FIFA looked at my previous list of matches.
That'll be a great game.
And assumed I was Danish, given I've done so many other games before. So I'm looking forward to it. I've applied for loads of others as to whether, because everyone is the same place, obviously much easier to get to games.
Yes.
We're allowed to go to two a day. So I just have to see as to whether I'll make the cut for other games. I was talking to someone, if they reckon I should be grand for one game a day, but Spain, Germany I'll struggle for, and Brazil and Argentina games I might struggle for, which would be
be nice to
which
get
would
one
be
of them,
super disappointing.
Yeah.
So I'll take, if FIFA are listening, I'll take Argentina, Saudi Arabia, not a bother.
If anyone's listening, just get Gav to an Argentina or Brazil game, please.
OTB AM.
More World Cup. I mean, you've been obviously doing your research and analysing the groups and the teams ahead of the tournament itself. Any shouts for dark horses, for winners? How are you feeling about the groups? Will there be anyone? You mentioned Qatar as well earlier, with Sadio Mane being out for Senegal, could potentially squeeze into the last 16, but any surprises that you can foresee?
Look, I and all those who listen to my predictions are all still in recovery, having tipped Turkey as dark horses as the
so did I.
At the previous
Shocker.
Euros. They absolutely stank the place out. Who do I think will win? It does feel like the balance of power has finally shifted back to South America. So the World Cup has been carved up by Western Europe for the last 20 years, but I think Brazil probably. I think the only real question mark around them is how they'll do against top level European opposition, because they haven't played them.
Yeah.
They've played one European team since the last World Cup, and that was a 2019 friendly against Czech Republic. So they haven't really been tested there, but then their top players are all playing in Champions League, and most of them are playing the Premier League at this point. So probably Brazil. I really want Argentina to win it. I have to say, I will admit that. I would love to see Messi's legacy crying. His legacy is secure regardless of what happens in this World Cup, but it would be amazing for him to win for the great. I think I just like the completeness of the best player ever to play the game to have won everything there is to win. Yeah, really. So I hope that happens. Dark horses. Maybe I'm overrating them because I've seen them against Ireland and seen them in the flesh, but I think Serbia are really good.
Right.
Once Mitrovic and Vlahovic are fit, which I think they probably will be, maybe defensively a little bit suspect, but they just have so many goals in that team. They're in a tough enough group with Brazil, Switzerland and Cameroon, I think. But I think maybe Serbia might surprise a few of us. Denmark, are they dark horses? Can I really say that Denmark are anything but a horse in kind of dazzling white glare, given I've seen them so bloody often throughout my life? So maybe them among them. Other interesting things I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to see how Ghana do.
Yeah.
Obviously they have Chris Hughton there as a kind of a Bobby Robson to the manager, Steve Staunton. I wouldn't say they're coming in and a wing and a prayer, but the Ghanaian FA did announce 2 national days of fasting and prayer ahead of the World Cup, just to give them a little bit more luck in this tournament. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes there. And look, England are, as ever.
Well, this is it.
A
big question.
A fascinating story for us.
If I'm to I'm going to put you completely on the spot here.
Yeah, please
and
do.
I'm going to name each group, and you're going to very quickly give me the 2 teams that are going to come out of the group.
Excellent.
We'll go no further, right?
Excellent.
We'll go no further. So Group A, we've got Qatar, Ecuador, Senegal, and the Dutch.
Yeah, so Netherlands to top it, with Qatar squeezing ahead of a Mane-less Senegal.
I like that. Group B, England, Iran, USA, Wales.
England and USA.
Oh, all the Welsh fans have just pressed the off button.
I'm sorry, Wales.
But, it's fair. USA have a strong squad. Probably leaning that way as well.
I think they're the youngest squad in the tournament. They have so much energy, I think. Look, I mean, if Bale is fit for 3 games, he's the ultimate big game player, so that could change it.
Yeah, for sure. Group C, Argentina, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, Poland.
Saudi Arabia to top, obviously. Argentina followed by Poland.
Argentina followed by Poland. Yeah, because I've seen a lot of people talking about Mexico, but it was
Mexico are the Irish rugby team of Football World Cup.
They're not great at the minute.
They get to the last 16, then they don't win a knockout game. They haven't won. They've been to every last 16 since I think, is it USA 94?
Right.
And they've lost in the last 16 at every World Cup since USA 94.
It's like Ireland at the Rugby World Cup quarterfinals, essentially.
yeah,
Can't get past it. Group D, France, Australia, Denmark, Tunisia.
France to top with Denmark second. I wouldn't be surprised if Denmark top it ahead of France.
Yeah, seems like a fairly straightforward group, either or, France or Denmark to top
Yeah.
it. Group E, like this group, Spain, Costa Rica, Germany, Japan.
Yeah. I think Germany to top it.
Ooh.
Spain second. With Japan, who I thought Japan would have had me dark horses label had they been in an easier group.
Tough group.
They'll finish third, and I think Costa Rica will lose all their games.
Right, they're going to be the wooden spoon team of the World Cup.
Themselves are Ghana, maybe. Yeah.
Right. Group F, Belgium, Canada, Morocco, Croatia.
Yeah, it's so interesting this because
This is the hipster
you'd
group.
imagine Belgium and Croatia will be fine, but they're creaking. Maybe actually. Croatia have regenerated themselves a little bit, and obviously Modric doesn't seem to age.
Yeah.
So Croatia will get through. I think Belgium will get through, but I don't think they'll go much further than the last 16.
Right.
Like Alderweireld and Vertonghen is still at the back. Axel Witsel could be in midfield. Lukaku is injured.
Aging.
Hazard's been sitting on the bench, and he's not the kind of guy who who immediately gets his match fitness back, shall we say. And Canada probably won't have enough to get out of the group, but like, can you imagine the pace of like Alphonso Davies and these guys on the counter?
Yeah, if he's fit for the opening game,
against that Belgian defence,
Yeah,
it could be ugly. And sorry, who do we say the other team in that group?
It's Tunisia.
Oh, Tunisia. Yeah, I will.
Sorry, which group we're talking about?
No,
Belgium,
sorry.
Canada, Morocco, Croatia.
Yeah, so Morocco had dropped. I mean, the coach, Bosnian coach, is it? I can't remember his name. It begins with I can't pronounce his name. He's a kind of an anti-Carlos Queiroz. So Queiroz is back as World Cup in charge of Iran again.
Yes,
I'm sure we all have had our moments watching Carlos Queiroz teams. They're not exactly it's not exactly champagne football.
tough to watch.
So I thought we wouldn't see him at this World Cup because he left Iran after 2018 to take the Colombia job. Got sacked for not qualifying. Then took the Egypt job. Got sacked for not qualifying, and Iran hired him again anyway, so he's back. And to complete this anecdote, the guy who qualified Morocco, who's again, his name escapes me, I'm sorry, this is the third time now he's qualified a team for the World Cup and been sacked just before the World Cup. They've got a local guy in charge. They've brought back Ziyech because the previous coach had fallen out with him. I think that's probably why he ended up getting the sack. So, but I don't think they'll have enough. I do think Croatia will top it. I think Belgium will squeak through in second, but won't go a whole lot further.
Morocco beat Georgia 3-0 in a friendly last night. Ziyech was on the score sheet. So
Farage wasn't playing. I don't think so.
So they have a bit of strength and depth still to come back in. Group G, Brazil, Serbia, Switzerland, Cameroon.
Yeah, really good group this. I think Brazil will top it. And one of the games I've applied for that I'm looking forward to most if I can get in is Serbia against Switzerland.
Brilliant.
In the final group game. That feels like a shootout for second place among countries with a certain amount of history between them. They had a cracker and quite a controversial one at the previous World Cup. So I think Serbia. I'll stick with my dark horses tag. Ooh. And Serbia to beat Switzerland.
A lot of people saying the Swiss because the Swiss like progressing out of the group. Roy Keane went for the Swiss, I think, to progress second, but that will be a classic game, that Serbia-Switzerland match. Shootout. Not ruling out Cameroon, but I mean Serbia and Switzerland.
Well, Cameroon have. I mean, genuinely, the Cameroon manager is Rigobert Song, and the question posed to him is, can you make room in your team for the most informed striker in the world? Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting, once of Stoke, has been unbelievable for Bayern this year, and is not necessarily in their starting team. Which is kind of strange. They have to pick him. They absolutely have to pick him.
The final group is Group H: Portugal, Ghana, Uruguay, and South Korea.
Yeah, this is kind of a group of flaws, really. I mean, none of those teams really stand out. South Korea, hopefully Son is fully fit. It looks like he probably will be, although he's not exactly taking red-hot club form in. Portugal will get through. I know Alan Quinlan wants to see them win the tournament. I don't think they will. They have a Ronaldo problem in the sense that they'll play him and they won't drop him, but they're a much better team without him. I think they'll probably qualify. Uruguay are a bit of an unknown quantity. You look at the squad and you think, well, that's an ancient squad because it's got Cavani, Suarez and Diego Godin. But then they've got, Fede Valverde, who's been at Madrid, he's been genuinely one of the best midfielders in Europe this year. They've also the agent of chaos, Darwin Núñez. So it remains to be seen what happens with them. So they're a little bit unpredictable, but I'll go with Uruguay to top the group with Portugal in second.
Interesting. Yeah, that could make for some fairly feisty last 16 ties, I'd imagine. Gavin, great stuff as always. Thanks a million this morning. You're flying it tomorrow afternoon, direct to Doha?
Tomorrow afternoon. I'll miss Ireland, Australia, direct to Doha from Dublin, and then I will arrive at a hotel that hopefully exists.
Well, hopefully when you land, and it's not just a tent in the desert. That would be a start, a nice start to the trip. Gavin, great stuff.
Thanks,
as always
Shane.
this morning.
Really
Thanks a
enjoyed
million. OTB AM brought to you with Gillette in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent Mo. You can sign up or donate now at Movember.com. OTB AM back Monday morning. I'll be with Ger in studio.